Hey, Renee.
Hey, Annette.
Today I wanted to talk about when we were little. I wondered if those in another household had the same thing happening to them, that one of their girls. So, according to
Mhm.
my mind, somehow, I figured out that I was the only one in my mind that was being abused by the shadow man. That's what I called my abuser, was a shadow man, because I couldn't see his face at the time.
Makes
And
sense.
so it made me wonder as a little girl, especially as as your world grows and you go to your neighbors' houses and then you go to school,
Right.
who else, who else was not a victim? I didn't have that word, but now I do as an adult,
Right.
was being sexually abused as a child. What did they look like? How come they were chosen? All these things went through my head. And I wondered, it was something that I was searching for.
Yeah. At the
Did you ever
beginning,
wonder?
oh, yeah. At the beginning, no, I always thought I was the only one, and I never looked around my world. I think you described it really well. As our spheres of influence and spheres of um, experiences grew with going to school, yes, and having more friends or whatever that is, whatever that experience grew into, that did come to mind for me as well. Ditto, absolutely a ditto. I would look at family units, I would look even at school and just wonder, is she one too?
Mm.
But it didn't start that way. Like I said, as a young person, it was only in my house and it was normal actually in my head that this is just what happens in houses. And then I thought, well, it's only me when I found out it was not good or started figuring out it was not good or didn't feel good and all that other stuff. And then realizing, oh, wait, it could affect other people. So who else? Ooh, or even when I go to somebody's birthday party, I wonder how many here. That wondering, when you ask that question, that wondering came out a lot when I would be amongst groups of people.
Yeah, it would be, especially if I was around my cousins. I always
Mm,
wondered. That was my first group of people, were my
mm,
cousins.
mm.
And from there it moved to neighbors.
Yeah, for me, it would be the classroom,
Mm.
wondering, is this friend, is that friend? Why were people silent? Just always kind of wondering that.
Well, my biggest thing is I was wondering, and then if I could find somebody, then I'd ask them, how are you making it stop?
Right?
Because I couldn't figure out how to make it stop. Another thing I was thinking about when I was younger and a little girl was playtime. So I started off with dolls, baby dolls, and from there moved up to Barbies. But the baby dolls, I remember in the beginning when I was playing with my sisters, we would have these diapers that we would put on them,
Yeah.
and we would need to change the baby's diapers and say, oh man, they wet their pants or whatever it was. Because we used to have dolls that you could put a bottle in and it would leak straight through the darn doll and they'd have a wet diaper.
Oh, you had one of those. I had the walking one,
Oh, there you go.
little bitty walking one.
So experiencing that, but what I found was after changing the first diaper, I didn't like it at all because you have to take the diaper off the doll. And sometimes you have to take off because it has a little one PC outfit on the baby. You have to unsnap it, then you have to get it the rubber pants. Back then there was rubber pants before the cloth diaper and
Yes.
such. And um, I did not like undressing the doll because it immediately triggered what was I was experiencing at night with somebody removing my clothing, the
Mhm.
pajamas and then my panties and then going from there. And I didn't like the feeling of it. I didn't like remembering it. It would mess up the whole doll playing experience. And
Yeah.
so I stopped feeding the baby doll water so it would stop going to the bathroom. But my friends or my sisters would have their baby dolls and they would have to change the diaper and stuff. And I know I would turn away because I didn't want to look at them changing the baby's diaper or whatever it
Mm,
is. And nobody
mm,
really noticed, but I noticed because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to be having that PTSD triggered at that moment. I wanted to enjoy playing with my friends.
True.
As well as when it came to Barbie time. Now I'm a little older and I'm playing with Barbies. And I could say, I remember playing with my Barbies and I would be recreating what was happening to me at night type thing. Now I wasn't avoiding it. Now I was actually replicating it in my play. And I think I mentioned it in a video a long time ago that I did that once with a couple of neighbor girls that were over, and they were like, what the heck? We don't, and they were saying, oh my gosh, that's so nasty. And I knew immediately those two girls had not experienced it. I knew immediately, and not to go that route again, because I didn't want to be nasty or known as nasty type situation.
True. And for me, I was probably on the opposite end of that when it came to the Barbie part. I didn't like Barbies. And maybe part of it, I mean, I'd rather decorate our house or have a car that drove around the house than actually mess with the Barbie. But the ones that I had, now that you were saying that, I didn't like seeing them naked because you got to see their breasts, you saw their other parts. I didn't like nudity, anything like that. And I recognize now that you're saying this, that had carried through to my adulthood of, being extra modest. And I mean, we'll go into other stuff, but that's a sign that I'm seeing is, dang, I didn't like seeing even the dolls be revealed. Yeah. So I avoided playing with them like that as well.
Interesting how it flowed out of our life in different ways. But the bottom line is, to me, is it leaked out anyways, even though it was a secret in our life, even though this was something that the abuse, as it was not to be told, it was actually visible for people to see the after effects of what it did to us.
Yeah. But they could have seen it as something, I mean, based on what you're sharing, it could have sounded like just natural play. How many kids have you seen just play silly with their dolls? You know what I mean? Or just don't like dolls. It sounds normal. It sounds natural. You don't think about it. Or seeing a kid not liking changing diapers, well, you just think they don't want to do the work. You don't think anything about there being abuse related to that play.
Correct.
Or what I've heard other people say is, oh, they're just curious. It's that age of curiosity. And they don't see it as abuse related either,
Yep. But the fact that we could see it now is interesting. And how
thank God we were given that insight.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Well, the way that we could see how it's connected. It was my outward play to express and to work through what happened to me.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. When I would play that way with my Barbies, it came to the point where my Barbie, who was being abused, fought back.
Go Barbie.
Go Barbie. But at the same way, everybody has their own way. It was a way of working through it, I think.
Yeah. I don't know that I can say I worked through it through play, because that modesty, that desire to have that modesty, to it's mine, nobody's going to see it, nobody's going to touch it, it carried to adulthood, to the point of even getting married. I would joke and say, I really would have made a really good nun. And my husband would laugh and he would agree, because I turned my body off so much. Like, I went to this extreme of I'm not going to feel anything. So I did that as a child. I refused to feel anything. I refused to allow myself to even explore sexuality, hardly at all, Yes, I skinny dipped once in our pool. Nobody was around. And that was as a young kid, because I just, I heard, well, that might be something fun to do. So I did it. Yes, I did a dare to myself. But then I shut it down really fast. Like, no, that's dirty. Don't go there. But I carried that mentality into adulthood of just shutting my body down completely, the playing dead, like your book is titled, you know. And it has taken work to tell my body it has permission to be alive, to tell my body it has permission to enjoy things. And I could probably still say, yeah, I'd be a really good nun because I went, yeah. And even
Right.
friends know me as the extra conservative when it comes to cleavage and all that kind of stuff, you know, with what women wear and all of that. Yeah, it's just has made me uncomfortable.
Well, that's all. I just wanted to bring those things up so that those who know those who've been sexually abused or working with somebody, and or if they've been sexually abused, that they could see that, to be honest, this is pretty darn normal, especially swinging from the pendulum from being ultra conservative to the other end of the spectrum, which is the party girl that they use in a few ways of explaining who they are type thing. And it's because of that darn sexual abuse as a child that had happened in there.
Yeah. And we didn't even go on that part really heavily here, you know.
Well, because I wasn't a party girl, I really can't express myself in that way. But I've seen it and I've worked with people that are on that end of the scope.
Yeah. And I've had people in my life growing up and currently as well who, yeah, that was the route they went in numbing their pain. You know, we numb it one way or the other, that we find a way, you know, of acting it out or numbing it. And for some folks, it went that way. And it helped me understand, you know, for one person in particular, I didn't even know that they were abused. I didn't know until they were an adult just recently that they were raped at a park. And I couldn't figure out why she was such a wild girl, you know, to the point of I had to distance myself because I couldn't handle it, you know, and then being a teen, I couldn't participate in the same things with boys, you know, it wasn't in my wheel, didn't want to be there. And explained to me one time when we were on a drive, and I'm like, wow, that makes so much sense now. But she just didn't have the courage until then as an adult to explain to me why she made those choices, why she went in that direction. It was her way of numbing things. It was her way of working through it.
I'm glad she was able to explain it to you.
Me too. Yeah. And I had to apologize for making myself distant because I couldn't handle it. You know, I didn't understand it, couldn't handle it.
Well, may God help us all find our voice, so it's not something that's just kept inside and squashed down.
True. Yeah. And reveal to us things that maybe we've carried since our childhood, you know.
Yep.
And give voices to others.
Thanks for discussing it, Renee.
No problem. Bye.
See ya.